the Fired Up Sports network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
You're listening to Drunk on Broad, Philly Sports Unfiltered! From Broad Street down to the bank, we bleed red, green, black, blue, and gray. Racial classes, game day pride, Philly's hardware, drunk on the ride. The aliens flying high tonight, six stars lights up, the sky's so bright. Flyers crash like thunder on the ice, Philly swinging, everything's nice. Union chanting, passion loud and raw, city of grit, we break every law. Uptown, drunk on broad, no we don't sleep. City of champions, running deep. For another round, let's make it loud. Feel it forever. We're Broad Street proud. Drunk on Broad, yeah we're home. Drunk on Broad.
Hockey because Danny Briere just decided to just set everything on the table and just let everybody know that he's back in business, because that was I know that, and we'll get into the ins and outs of how that transpired over the course of that week, but to now know that they've kind of put the league on notice that they're ready to play and they're ready to be involved in these conversations. It's a good feeling considering where this team has been and where it's going, to kind of know that you're on the other side of that swing of that roller coaster. It's a good feeling.
Yeah. To make to make a move like the Leo Carlson offer sheet, and then to see people come down and all week long, like that's really, like, for fans, it's like the torture of it all, right? Like it's kind of fun to talk about it all week, and like are they going to match the deal? Are they not going to match the deal? And yeah, it was a really really good swing, if you were to put it in those terms. And yeah, I think, like, it definitely kind of can send a message that, like, like, if the Flyers are willing to spend the money, I don't think that's ever been
For sure.
the issue there. But it being, like, a legitimate young, like, really one first line centerman, and in Carlson's case, he's all situations, right? Like, he can do everything, highly skilled, and yeah. So now, I mean, he's going back to the Ducks, and but he goes back to the Ducks.
Definitely puts a kink in their financial planning.
Yes, it does. And that's another thing too, like, where when you lay it out, as I'm sure they do, I'm sure there's very, very much, like, there's a lot of intense planning and things like that goes into how you manage the salary cap. But like, when you look at, like, if you don't match it, if you're the Ducks, the optics are so bad, especially after you had come out and had been like, we'll match any offer for Leo Carlson. I don't know if that was to scare some teams away, but when you got, like, a team like the Flyers owned by, like, this big corporation, they don't really care. They just got to get someone to sign off on it. It's like, how much money is.
And knowing that the history for financially with Anaheim, is a very, very, like, if they can save a penny, they're going to. And I love that they kind of just said, like, listen, you had the opportunity to make that move and lock him up in all the years leading up to it, right? And you're talking about a guy who's 21, who's essentially like a point per game player, um, and a guy who would automatically have elevated the play because of what he does as just being that 1C. That it's one of those premium positions that I think they've identified that they know if they're going to get one, this is how they're going to have to do it, because those guys just don't hit free agency. We saw that in the time leading up to this offseason, that like a lot of those guys just got locked up, those 1D, 1C guys, because everybody needs them. Nobody has them. And the teams that do aren't letting them go. And especially for a guy who's 21, who's coming into his prime. And just, I think the thoughts and the scenarios of like where he would fit on this roster and who are you pairing him with, and what does that do for the elevation of play for the guys around him. It was just, it's good to have, to be in a situation where in the middle of July, we're able to have these like not meaningless conversations about this team.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I wonder how, like, going forward here, like um how we're gonna see them pivot now that the it sounded like the Flyers, they sent the offer sheet, but they were under the impression that um Anaheim was going to match it.
Mm-hmm.
Um and just again, like from the Ducks' point of view, and you mentioned about like kind of like the penny pinching that goes on there. I mean, they've gone through some pretty. Pat Verbeek, the general manager, uh, has a reputation for being a tough negotiator and things like that. Um,
Yes, very
and
much so,
like so, um, you put yourself in a position where you're kind of ripe for that.
for sure.
Um, especially again, to come out publicly and say like, "Oh, well, Matt Kenny offer," and then you're asking for another team to be like, "Well, you might put that right," like kind
Right?
of,
Yeah, for sure.
uh, and to test them on that theory. And I mean that was as good of a swing as the Flyers offer was as good of a swing as you were going to get. He's the highest paid player in the game today,
Yeah.
um, and because of it. So, um, but yeah, like I mean, like for the Flyers were kind of under the impression, from what I've gathered, that that this they were going to match this deal. So I'm kind of interested to see where what the pivot is here for the rest of the
Yeah.
summer, because we still got quite a bit of off season left. So is there another? Maybe there's another trade out there. Maybe there's something materializes that they've been working on here. So I'm interested to see what that might be, because they still too, like I mean, it would be good to have, in addition to the centerman. I mean, it looks like the Flyers have been out there kind of looking for another defenseman, maybe a guy that can play the power play, or something like that. Maybe there's a trade out there with somebody that can get like a power play specialist in here or something like that. And so I'm interested to see what the plan B or C, whatever you would like to call it, what
Yeah.
it would be here for them.
Like, and just forgive me for not knowing, but like the is the window for the offer sheet, is that, has that window expired? Is there the timeline on that?
Yeah. So the offer sheet, once the deal is made, or the offer is made, the offer sheet is
Right.
sent.
They got
The
7 days.
team, they have a week to match.
Okay.
So the Ducks have matched the Carlson
Right.
deal.
But in terms of being able to, like, I'm thinking like you're talking like, what are the next couple of moves? Are there still opportunities to give offer sheets out to guys that still are like, is there a window to be able to offer an offer sheet?
Oh yeah. So to my knowledge, I'd have to look at like the CBA on the NHL site, but I'm pretty sure you can offer Adam Fantilli, just for example, is a restricted free agent
Hmm.
with the Columbus Blue Jackets, a young centerman. If like just hypothetically the Flyers could offer him a offer sheet. Like I don't think there's any real like set dates that you can offer them. If a player's a restricted, if a player's an RFA, I think they're susceptible to they're able to sign an offer sheet if they were to get it. I don't think there's any like time frame
Okay.
for it.
I'm looking at Puckopedia,
Hmm.
and it says the 2026 offseason um, is July 1 through December 1. So during
Okay.
this time, any team can offer or present a Group 2 restricted free agent a qualifying offer. So,
Okay. Yeah.
so there, I guess that answers like there wouldn't be a window.
Yeah.
It's essentially now through December.
Yeah. I also know too that Carlson, if the Ducks were to like try to trade Leo Carlson, they couldn't do so for like a count like 1 year.
Calendar year.
So yeah. So it wouldn't be till next summer if they decided to do that or whatever.
All right, Mark.
Um,
Let's talk terms of the deal, right? Because this was a huge talking point for the message that it sends around the league, and 5 years, 90 million, and 18 million AAV, but 38.9 paid in the first 357 days.
yeah.
So, like, you're essentially it was when you say front loaded,
Yeah.
it was like front loaded is an understatement. And then to know that it was almost structured in a way like they've been paying attention to the team across the street
Yeah.
and looking at the way that Howie Roseman is structuring deals and how they really try to structure with cash up front and then lower the AAV because that's essentially like an ownership decision. Like, do you
Right.
want to put the money out or do you want to pay it long term? So like every year on July for like it seems like every year subsequently on July 1st, it would be 18.1, 17, 15, 15, like significant, like, and then the salaries are like the most that they would pay in a salary would be in those last 2 years, and it would be $1 million. So,
Yeah.
like the way that it's structured, you're able to compensate the player, keep the cap hit low, so you're able to surround the team, surround that player with more talent. And part of me wonders, is this laying the seed for some players that might become disgruntled down the line?
Yeah. Especially if it's over money, right? Like
Right?
maybe like you automatically have the Flyers like on your mind because you're like they'll pay me, like
Yep.
um and it might, like, it definitely, that might be a possibility. um and then again, like, that was what made the contract so, and what kind of made this week kind of drag on, like, uh as we waited for the Ducks decision, was like, it wasn't like, when you're talking about the player himself, like, yeah, it's a
Mhm.
layup to, like, we don't want to lose a player like that, obviously. But
Right.
um, when you start to look at the details of the contract and all, you're like, this could really, like, kind of wreck our cap structure
Mm-hmm.
and things like that, when it comes to like roster building and stuff like that. But it was interesting too, like, because they did something, a completely different regime, right? Like when the Flyers offered Shea Weber an offer sheet in 2014 or 2013, whatever
Okay.
year that was. I mean, like, that deal was kind of similar in the sense that, like, the years I remember were like insurmountable. Like it was like he's there was no like cap on like how many years you could offer at the time, so it was like a 14-year deal or something like that. 12,
I'm gonna pull
14
it
year
up.
deal. And and I remember that money, like the money in that was pretty, like the bonuses and how you kind of like offer like the signing bonus stuff and structure that really put Nashville in a bind. So the Flyers are like pretty, even though it was a different regime then,
Mhm.
like they're pretty well versed in like kind of offering these kind of like poison pill contracts where
Yeah, for
like
sure.
it can really like, if you're a small market team, it could be a real problem for you.
I pulled it up in July of 2012. It was a 14-year, $110 million deal.
Yeah.
So at the very least, the Flyers are really good at getting other guys paid, guys that are going to
Yeah.
play for other teams, right? And it like I really like the way that they were playing. They're playing in a different sandbox, and that to me is a huge deal because it sends a message to the guys on the team that they're going to be willing to do whatever they have to do to acquire the talent, and two, they also know what they need to make that move. They know what they need to be able to get to elevate their play to be in those same conversations with the Carolinas, the Floridas, to be in the mix, to be able to really elevate the level of play in the East.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it was a good effort,
Mm-hmm.
in trying to get the player. But yeah, I mean, like that could be probably on like I'm sure people kind of scoff at that, like, but I'm sure that in league circles, like if you're a player and an agent, that would put the Flyers on your radar, knowing that like even though free agency isn't what it was and guys are
Mm-hmm.
signing, because that's the other thing too, I think, Don, where like the Flyers have all this cap space, but with the cap going up, the cap ceiling raising, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
teams do. Like it gives a lot of other teams opportunities to kind of like maneuver and shuffle money around to fit in their top players and all. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to shake. You have all this cap space and the cap's going up. It doesn't necessarily mean that like you're the only team that can take advantage of it. Even if you have more of it, then like I think the Flyers actually have the most cap space currently in the league right now. So,
Right.
um, but Trevor Zegras and Jamie Drysdale are still their due contracts, and that should take up some of that. But the Flyers should have some money to play around with after that once they get that figured out because both those players filed for arbitration. So we'll see how
Right.
we'll see how that goes. And I wonder if that was just simply, you know, the Flyers were working on other things and maybe like it kind of got put on the back burner a little bit. I don't think there's any like malice there where like it's like this like ugly negotiation of a contract for either player. I think they both want to be here, but it was just business.
Understood. I gotcha. I think Mark, my favorite meme of the week was the really really old queen from Game of Thrones, and it says, "Tell Cutter I want him to know it was me." Like, and that's the other thing. Like, we know that they also have a pile of young players that are going to be due deals, and that's going to really force Anaheim's hand and force them to make a decision on who's going to stay and who's going to go. And um, that part to me is like it's a little bit of chess and checkers. Like you're laying the groundwork to be able to kind of plant. You're planting those seeds for way down the line. And the one that always has my attention, right, is McDavid, right?
Mm,
McDavid in Edmonton. That like this is kind of like a blinking light for him to say like, hey, listen, if you ever want out, we got money,
yeah.
right? And you would have the ability to be able to. I think you could put together a pretty competitive package of young guys that are going to be cheap and cost effective and still keep a pool of players around when he would get here. but also have that financial windfall and the backing to be able to get a deal done.
Yeah, yeah. That is an interesting thing to keep an eye on here moving forward with McDavid. Obviously, his last contract was not a long term contract, which I think a lot of people were kind of, um, you know,
Yeah,
maybe
two
that was
two
a
years at
message.
25 million.
Yeah, and maybe that's a message to upper management that like, hey, like I want to see where this goes before I commit long term.
Right.
What you guys have, you know, up your sleeve here. Um, so that's an interesting thing to keep your eye on because I mean, if he were to make it the free agency, like we could talk about like preparation for that, and as I'm sure all teams that had even like a little bit of cap space would be, you know, uh, trying to figure out and have their numbers, people crunch the numbers of like how can we fit McDavid in,
Mm-hmm.
but I would imagine first of all it would be unprecedented. I don't know that I can't think of a time. He would be the most sought after free agent probably in NHL
Oh,
history. There wouldn't be any, and he would probably have his pick. Like his
sure.
what teams that he would be willing to consider would be very. He would have all the power in that.
For sure.
Um,
And I think we saw a little bit of that this offseason. A lot of
yeah,
guys that are not just requesting trades, but requesting trades and giving them a list of 3, 4 teams.
right. So, yeah, it would be unprecedented. I mean, like if if he did make it there, but I mean, like that might be like one of the greatest. Like whoever ends up with him, like via free agency, that might be one of the greatest acquisitions of all time. Like I don't know that there'd be ever be a situation like that again, or like maybe it would flip the perception of free agency in general across the
Mm-hmm.
league, where it's like the NHL's free agency, especially in recent years with the cap and the salary cap and things like that going up, guys are more willing to like re up in the places that they are
For
already.
sure.
Um, and but if McDavid goes and then he gets paid and he goes to a team where they start winning, all of a sudden maybe it's like it opens the door for more players to be like, you know what, I'm going to go do that too. Like
Right.
why am I staying here? you know,
Yeah.
uh,
No, Mark, I'm going to give you a scenario. Right. He's in year 1 of 2. Right. So the contract goes through the 27-28 season. But let's just say, not this season, but next season, he's in the you're at a team that could or could not be as successful as they've been in the past. Let's say
yeah,
that Edmonton is not having a great year in the 27-28 year. Is
yeah,
that something that they move at the deadline and to try to acquire talent, knowing that he's had thoughts and feelings of leaving? Like,
yeah,
or do they pull like a Otani?
yeah,
Because that to me in Anaheim was like the biggest miss ever. Like you had the opportunity to trade Shohei Otani going into what he'd already expressed as going to explore free agency. You kept
yeah,
him, got nothing. McDavid seems to me like you're talking about a player in the same era, right? Like
right,
if they're out of it and he's already expressed interest in potentially exploring,
yeah,
and you can get a haul back to really over like essentially restart the franchise, seems
right.
like something that you would have to explore.
Yeah, it's funny because with those types of things, and we can group Otani, like a player like Otani, into that too. It's like in McDavid's case, it would be like that makes a lot of sense, right? To do that in that situation, but then it's like, how do you like assess his value? Like, if he's the best player in the sport, and it was like, well, how do you, what's a proper price to pay? You know what I mean? Like, are
Mhm.
you, is there a proper price to pay, like where like there's nothing that you're going to get back that is going to replace what you lost? You know what I mean? Like, so you're just taking a loss on it no matter what, but you're
Mhm.
trying to get something of value back to you. You know what I mean? Like where um, that's how I would kind of look at like the McDavid thing. It was like how many first round picks is the best player in the sport, worth, or how many like high end like blue chip prospects is he worth?
Yeah.
It's hard to say because like there probably really isn't a price. You know what I mean? None of them are likely to become the next Connor McDavid, that's for sure. So it's like how do you manage that? Or
Yeah.
how do
And I
you
think
assess the value?
for me, like you're net like for when you're talking about trading a player like that, you're never going to get anything remotely equivalent back, and you're banking on acquiring something and not nothing. And that's the kind of
Right.
like where like if again, if he's already expressed the interest in moving on, if your team's out of it, if like you can see that the writing's on the wall, then
Right.
like that's when I think you owe it as like a steward of the franchise, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're caring for this franchise and like you can't, I think you, as an ownership group, as a GM, you're kind of in a no-win situation because the fan base is going to be upset either way. One, they're going
Yeah.
to be upset if you trade him, but two, they're also going to be upset if he leaves and you get nothing. So like,
Right.
it's like, all right, like do we take the hit now and be able to
Right.
swing the fact that like we got whatever 4 first-round picks, we got X amount of players in return, we got whatever we got.
Yeah.
I mean, someone could trade an entire piece of their farm system, and I still you could probably find a handful of people that would argue that it's still not enough,
It's still not. Yeah.
considering the player. But like that's a generational talent, right? It's a guy that
Yeah.
like, but changes and alters the trajectory of whatever franchise he's going to go to if he
Yeah.
does leave.
Absolutely. And I will say too, like just in like because we're a Philadelphia theme uh, sports podcast on the Drunk on Broad stuff is like um I would probably argue at that point, like if the Flyers were to like somehow acquire McDavid, or he were to choose, which I think would mean so much to so many people too. Like if he were to go to
Mm-hmm.
free agency, he picked your franchise, that would be, you'd be like, wow, like that's a huge deal. But he would probably be, he'd have to be like, even though like I know where the Flyers are typically in like the interest pecking chart, are
Mm-hmm.
like our major sports teams sometimes. Like he would have to be probably the single greatest acquisition of like in Philadelphia sports history.
I
Because like
mean,
even
right?
though like guys like Harper and like there's some other like Saquon or whatever, they're like one of the best in their sports. But like McDavid is the best player in his sport. Like you know what I
Right.
mean? Like that would be like I don't even think that that's there's a lot of great players in the NHL, but like I don't think that that's debatable. I think Connor's the best player in the game. And
I mean, you have some people that will argue with a wall that might tell you different, but like
yeah,
I would tell you that like he's a stick and click player for me. So like if
yeah,
I'm scrolling through and they're on, doesn't
yeah,
matter if it's highlights, doesn't matter if it's a game, whatever it is. I'm staying and watching because I know that he's that type of player. Um,
yeah.
and it would be on the rarest of rare occasions that he would leave. And I think for
Hmm.
me, like the only equivalent might be a guy that we might talk about in the second half of this show when we talk about the Sixers. But like when LeBron James moved,
Hmm.
like best player in the game, but you know, made his decision to leave Cleveland to go to Miami, leave Miami to go to LA, and now is back in that same scenario again. But like you're talking about, I mean, he's obviously no longer the best player in the game, but when he was moving at that point, he was not
Yeah.
only the best player in the NBA, but he was the face of the NBA.
Yeah.
And
You're right.
um, it's again, Mark, we're in a really good spot because these are the conversations we're having, right? We're not talking
Yeah.
about like how do they improve, an extremely below average power play where they're not really acquiring anybody. Like we're having different conversations, and
Yeah.
that feels like it's a really like again when we talk about Danny Briere and we talk about Keith Jones and how they are stewarding this franchise and how they're carrying it to this
Yeah.
next phase, I feel really good about knowing that their focus is kind of in the right direction.
Yeah. I will say too, like, just to add, like, about the McDavid stuff and all too, like, because now I'm gonna be daydreaming all day. Like,
Go ahead.
I'm going out later today, and I'm golfing with my cousin and all, and like,
There it
I'm not
is.
even gonna be. I'm not even gonna be focused on playing. I'm gonna be like, man, I wonder what Connor McDavid would look like in orange and black. You know what I mean? So, but it would be like, think about the match made in heaven too, right? Like, he's the greatest player in the game that's searching for his first Stanley Cup. And the Flyers are an organization, this long-term drought in like a really great market. Like, what it would mean, like how
Mhm.
symbiotic that would be, you know, for the Flyers to break a cup drought and then Connor to get his ring. You know what I mean? Would be like amazing. So that could be a lot of fun too, you know. So
Yeah,
like now I'm gonna be thinking about this all day. I can't
yeah.
like
I mean,
you
but
know.
Mark, yeah, again, in the same way that we'll be talking about in a little bit, right? Like for a guy that in LeBron James who has already won three, but to be able to close a chapter in one and then come to a city that hasn't won, right? In almost what's it been since 1983, right?
Right.
Since 1983 they've been to one Eastern Conference Finals, right? To be
Yeah.
able to come here and win and be the
Yep.
first person to ever win one with four different franchises, like
Yeah.
like you could just live out the rest of your life in the Delaware Valley. Like
Yep.
you
Yeah.
could summer here, winter in LA, but like
Yeah.
again, right? You're talking about like the different scenarios, but like that to me is where I think their eyes are. Their
Hmm.
eyes are on players like that, which is like really great. Um,
Hmm.
there was some rumblings about in the midst of this last week about a guy who's been here and left in Claude Giroux, right, and ends up going
Hmm.
back to Ottawa. Um, we never got a chance to talk, but like, where were you on the idea of bringing him back?
Yeah, like, with Claude, I think like um he's a highly debated player, I think, with the Flyers, especially long term
Mm,
captain, one of the uh during an era where the Flyers weren't very consistently good. Um and I think he catches a lot of brunt for that. I love Claude Giroux. He's one of my favorite players to ever play for the Flyers. I don't think he ever gets the true credit that he deserves for how good he was
yeah,
for his time with the Flyers, and I definitely believe someday, like, I think he's headed to the Hockey Hall of Fame, and in which case he'll have his number with the Flyers retired for playing here for so long. Uh, um, you know, and he would have, like, I could see, Claude's mostly a winger at this point, and that's like one thing the Flyers absolutely don't need is another winger.
yeah,
um, but he's still a pretty good, like, he's a face-off ace still.
yeah,
Still among the top in the league in face-off percentage, and I definitely think he would aid the power play. I just
for
don't
sure.
know. how much. And I also wondered once he went back to Ottawa, especially because him and Briere are so tight.
Yeah.
I was wondering if that was like maybe he was gonna go out and explore and see what was out there. Because we were just talking about McDavid and all. Like I've been thinking that Claw would have been a great fit in Edmonton. You know,
Yeah.
um, and but I mean, like that might be too far for him. You know, he's put roots down in Ottawa. That's his hometown. He's got
Right.
kids and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, like with Claude, I think like I was wondering if maybe the Flyers were because him and Briere are tight. Like maybe he was always going to go back to Ottawa, but he was like kind of trying to get like maybe a better signing bonus or kind of use like the negotiation stuff. Like, oh well, you know, the Flyers are interested too, and this is what the offer is. You know what I mean? Like to
Sure.
try to, you know, maybe get some more money out of it or something like that. So, um, I was about bringing him back. It was just I don't. Other than like winning faceoffs in the power play, it's hard to imagine where exactly he would fit if there wasn't more moves made.
Right.
Um,
I think, Mark, for
and
me, it would have
Claude's
also been a little bit weird. You've kind
yeah,
of you've moved on from that era, right? To bring back a guy that wore a letter on the sweater, and how does that play in the dynamic of like the guys that are
yeah,
now in those roles for this current team, and like you were saying, that where he would fit in roster construction in terms of like not these hyper specific situations. Um, from a nostalgic perspective, I had the like I have the jersey in the closet. It was ready to go if it came back, but like, um, but I understand why he went where he went. So
yeah, yeah,
I think um, anything else Flyers related before I give you something fun.
yeah. No, I don't think so. I'm glad we touched on Claude though, because you know, like I do. I think he's had a wonderful career, and like I think it's getting to that point now where like we're looking at like retirement in the next couple years, and that was another part of it too. I think Don we didn't talk like he got such a beautiful send off from the Flyers like
Yeah,
that last game.
yeah,
You know, it was kind of like you know I'm all about you know trading for him, have him sign the 1 day contract so he can retire a Flyer and do
absolutely.
all that stuff. You know, but yeah, like you said, like I think we're in a different phase, and there's a you know a different leadership group has emerged with the Flyers and stuff like that. And when you bring back somebody who's like had such a long career with the Flyers and was the you know longest tenured captain in the franchise's history,
Right.
um, you know maybe it shifts the leadership dynamic a little bit. Maybe there's a little bit more of a different thing. Although I think he would have fit in probably fine. I don't think Claude was ever like one to kind of like command the room. I think sometimes that was people's issues with him.
Right.
Um, you know, he's more like I think you know, follow me type like through his play and stuff
Understood.
more
Yeah.
than a more than like a rah-rah guy in the locker room. So I think it would have been fine, but um yeah, like I you know, um I think Ottawa him going back to Ottawa was probably you know, selfishly as a fan of his, I wanted him to maybe try to go chase it in Edmonton or something like that. But
Right.
I can understand, like, I won't knock somebody for being a good family man. That's for sure.
No, not at all. All right. Here's the fun thing. Did you see what the Islanders are doing for this upcoming season?
No.
So they just announced, and this was maybe like a week ago, that they are pioneering the launch of a fan-driven third jersey design contest. So they're going to let the
Yeah.
fans submit jersey designs for their like alternate, like for their third jersey, which I love.
Yeah.
Especially because the Islanders have had gone, they've gone through like a series of different, right? They've got the one, like the iconic New York with the hockey stick with the map of Long Island on it, right? They have that one that they wore with like the turquoise and orange with the Islander with the Siemens hat on. Like that was
Yeah,
like
yeah,
they
yeah.
had some different iconic jerseys. I would love for this the creativity of people in this city to have
Mhm.
a crack at a Flyers one, because I feel
Yeah.
the Flyers have stayed with a very traditional jersey design for the most part, right? They've got a couple of those Winter Classic jerseys that kind of veered off a little bit, but I would love for the Flyers fan base to be able to get a crack at designing like a third jersey.
Yeah, I would too. That's a really cool idea. I didn't see that. Um, and obviously Philadelphia has like a really great arts and culture element to it. And
For sure.
the Flyers have teamed up with local artists for some of their t-shirt giveaways and
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely.
I'm sure like they could if they have like a working relationship with those people, have
Hmm.
them like, hey, please submit your best like designs for this, and we might get something really, really cool out of it. Um,
Yeah,
I
I
know
know
people have
there were
like,
some conversations with the draft party, right?
yeah,
That Liberty Bell rug that was on the floor.
yes, yeah, that was really cool. That logo as a, um, I would love to see it like for like a third jersey thing, um, something like that. I know people have never like people are back and forth on it, especially even in Philadelphia, but I love the Flyers logo front and center on the jersey.
Okay.
That I There's something about like that era, like that first expansion era where, like that logo is to me, it's like, even though they've never changed it really, it's so like cool and retro, like the flying P on it, and
Hmm.
it looks in all of its late '60s, early '70s lore. It looks really cool on it. So I don't like the idea maybe of upserting it, but maybe a shoulder patch with it, and you go with like the Liberty Bell logo thing on the front. That could be kind of cool as like a third jersey, just for something different, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Like I just I like the idea of tapping into that community,
mhm.
and being able to give those, like, you see some really creative stuff, and I think sometimes you see stuff that, like, it almost makes you think, like, why didn't we think of that? So it's like just
Yeah.
getting a handful of different eyes on it is just something interesting and cool to watch. But all right, Mark, we're gonna jump out, and then we'll jump back in on all things Sixers, because they had a week to themselves as well. So we'll be right
Yes.
back on Sixers.
Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
All right, well, listen, we're back talking all things Sixers. I know that was a little bit of a quick turnaround, Mark, but there's too much to talk about. We can add, I can add all the intros and outro stuff later, but it's what a week. What a week
Oh man.
for these teams. And um, in the same way that Danny Briere was kind of putting everything on the table, Mike Gansey in 34 days has done more for this franchise in changing its trajectory. Um, we saw a couple of those early free agency moves, and we're like, some of those guys are like, all right, that makes sense, right? The Dean Wade thing makes sense. To be able to get a guy who's going to be able to shoot the three and play defense, and We see a little bit of what LeBaron Philon has potential for, again,
Yes.
albeit summer league. Um, but the guy that we thought was an immovable contract in Paul George
Yeah.
somehow gets packaged with 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks. And you get back Jaylen Brown, a guy who finished 6th in the MVP race, right? Who obviously was in a disgruntled situation in Boston, which I still don't understand. But I know that his name has been dangled out there for multiple trades in the last in the last handful of off seasons. But to be able to not just get off the Paul George contract, but to get back a guy who's a player, who's an All NBA player, who's a Finals MVP, who's a multiple time champion, who is a position of need,
Yeah.
and Mark, the thing that I think people aren't talking about enough is you are essentially saving Tyrese Maxey from being in a situation where he would ask to leave.
Yeah.
Because if he had to play 2 to 3 more years with Paul George and an aging Paul George and an aging Joel Embiid, there's only so much that he could do to carry that team.
Right.
He has now been essentially rejuvenated because you now have put him in a situation where he doesn't have to be that guy every night, right? He can rely on Jaylen Brown. He can like it makes so much of this roster makes so much sense, right? And they also move off of Kelly Oubre goes to Indiana. Quentin Grimes gets a 4-year, $60 million deal from from the Lakers. Like, it's crazy, right? And when you look at the compensation, right, you're talking about a 2028 first. That is, it says if it's in the top 16, the unprotected rights for Boston to swap with its pick. And then there's also some other stuff layered in there with where the Clippers are picking. And then it's a 2031 unprotected pick. And then 2028 and 2030 second round picks. So, like, I mean, you're talking about picks that are the first of those picks are 2 years from now.
Right.
You got to imagine that 2 years from now, those picks are going to be in the late 20s if this team is going to, and we know what those late 20s picks in the NBA are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I heard was it yesterday? 2 days ago, maybe. I was in I was up early and I was at I went down the road to the Wawa here to get coffee and stuff. And there's an older guy in there. He had a Sixers hat on and a Sixers t-shirt. And there was a younger couple. They were like getting sandwiches or something. And he turned around and he saw the guy's hat and his shirt, and he was like, "Hey, Jaylen Brown, man!" Like, he was like, "This is gonna be a great," like, to the older guy with the Sixers gear on,
Right.
and he made me laugh. I was standing there waiting in line, and the older gentleman in the Sixers gear was like, man, he was like, "I love Jaylen Brown." He was like, "I don't trust the Celtics though." He's like, "I don't like dealing with the Celtics."
We have been
Yeah.
fleeced, Mark. There is some there's some old wounds there.
Yeah.
There's a little PTSD because you feel like, all right, why were they so quick? Like, what are we missing here?
Yeah. And I thought to myself, exactly what you said there, Don. I was like, man, Boston has done so much damage to the Sixers over the last few
Yeah,
years that we're like, even though a trade that they've objectively won, like in terms of
right.
talent, assets, all in the deal, we're still like, I don't know about this, like, kind of thing, because we're like so like beat down by the Celtics. But he did say he loved Jaylen Brown, and I love it too. So like that was what wanted to mention that little story,
I
but
love that. That Mark, like that to me is like a huge part of what this deal does because it brings them back to the conversation because they were
yes,
clearly fourth and they were fourth trending down, right? And now it's rejuvenated the interest in this franchise because now you're
Mhm.
talking about, right, how do these guys fit together, right? You're talking about having, on the, the nights where Embiid doesn't play doesn't have to ultimately become a scheduled loss. You
Yeah.
have three legit scorers, guys that can get to the hoop at any point, with or without Joel Embiid on the floor. Um,
Mhm.
and again, when you talk about the ancillary pieces, right? You got rid of Quentin Grimes, who gets $15 million a year, and you essentially replace that with Dean Wade and Anthony Simons, right? Again,
Yes.
two guys that are going to score and play defense, and
Mhm.
legitimately improve that second unit.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, like to go back to the Jalen Brown piece, like of it, where like we were just for all the reasons you just mentioned and
Mhm.
stuff. Go back and you can listen to archives on this show where over the last season and a half, where we're like the Sixers need like athletic wings. We need help here in like the worst
Mhm.
way. And um, part of the reason we were saying that was because guys like Jalen Brown were just absolutely just destroying us when we played them.
Right?
And so like to now add a piece like that where like as you mentioned, like on nights where guys like Joel won't play, I mean, Jalen can go get you 30, 35 and win a basketball game like by himself. And that just gives you another opportunity to have somebody like
Mhm.
that along with Maxi and Edgecombe. And then like the way kind of like they've kind of padded the bench with Simons and Wade and drafting Phylon and having, LeBaron and Simons coming off your bench. And like that's pretty
Yeah.
good. I think when Maxi and Edgecombe need a breather, like those are pretty good options coming off the bench, in terms of like guys that can come off the bench and give you some minutes and buckets. Um, and I think I might have even mentioned Dean Wade on this show because I heard some
Yeah.
rumors and I was like,
Couple
I
times.
can kind of see the fit
Right? Like
there. So
when you talk about a guy who's a 3 and D guy, right? He is able to create to be that guy that just hangs in the corner where you
yeah,
can drive and kick it out, but also a guy that's not a turnstile on defense. Like he's a
yeah,
guy who's going to get after it on defense. Um, right. And right now, when I look at their depth chart, right, he's obviously slotted in as that starting power forward. Um, and there's another guy out there, who has yet to make his decision yet. But the from a roster construction perspective, doesn't seem like there would be a better fit than slotting him into the gaping hole that is the power forward position on this team. That would provide obviously a wealth of talent, even into his early 40s, but also to provide that leadership and that experience. We've heard right? We've heard Rich Paul, and we've heard Mike Ganzi, and we've heard right all the podcast leaks of the conversations about them waxing poetically over Tyrese Maxey and the opportunity to play with him and Edgecombe and Brown, and what that would do for LeBron James in terms of being able to have the opportunity to contribute, but not be the one that is relied on to score night after night.
yeah. Um, to have like the fact that like this is like seriously. I mean, I saw a report from ESPN that said the LeBron James sweepstakes are pretty much down to Miami and Philadelphia.
And the sixth, yeah.
Um, so I like all the things you just mentioned are like why LeBron's such a great fit on this roster, and that the fact that he seems to be really be considering, he's like strongly considering it,
Mhm.
um, is like really just, it's hard to wrap my head around. Like to
It feels
think
like we're
about
in
like
an alternative universe.
it does, like where I'm like, wow, is LeBron really going to come and like play for the Sixers? That would be incredible because you figure how the East kind of shapes up. Like if he ends up
Mhm.
going to the Heat, that's like another team for the Sixers to go through. I
Mhm.
still kind of like the way, like after acquiring Jalen Brown, still kind of like how things look for the Sixers, and then like, if you can fill in the margins with some like, quality like, vet min guys or something like
Mhm.
that, then like all of a sudden like I'm a lot more, like I feel a lot better about kind of how things kind of shape up. And
For sure.
even if LeBron ends up like deciding to go to Miami, because I mean like between, I look at that situation and I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, like they acquired Giannis Antetokounmpo, and that's a really like crazy get and stuff. I'm looking at that roster and I'm just like, who's going to shoot the basketball on that team?
Mark, I got it up on the screen, right? You're talking about Davion Mitchell is probably their number one scorer. Right?
Yeah,
He's the guy that's gonna like, but you're talking about a starting five with Davion Mitchell and Tim Hardaway Jr. and an like an older Andrew Wiggins, and
yeah,
then Giannis and Bam. And like I'm looking at that roster going, all right, well, where does he fit in? Like where does a guy like that fit in? And then when you
right.
look at the guys coming off the bench, right? You're talking about Bobby Portis, right? Like
Hmm.
guys that Mark, I'm going to say these names, and I don't even know who these guys are. Drew Smith and Ryan Conwell and Pierre Larson. Like that's like when you look roster for roster,
Hmm.
I don't know how, like if it's purely a basketball decision and say
Yes.
if I go here, I'm going to give myself the opportunity to win, and I'm going to be able to contribute and not have everything fall on me.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can look at both. And obviously we have to take money out of the equation because money, he has already put it out there that money is not the going to be the decision maker for essentially this last move.
Yeah.
Um, like I don't know how you look at that roster and go that this is one, especially when you look at how contentious the East is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, yeah, like and at the risk of sounding biased, but I mean, like, I don't think it's like a bias here. It's just like the choice is easy, I think, in terms of just basketball fit.
Oh, for
Like,
sure.
if you want to come and win, I mean, um, and like this is the situation. Like, I mean, and I think, knowing that Cleveland's was out there as like a potential destination, like to finish up in Cleveland, uh, Miami, places that he has like a history with. Um, I think that would be, um, if he were to end up in those situations, that would be purely sentimental. I think
For sure.
uh, his connection to Miami, winning there, you know, the Heatles are of like,
Yeah, for sure.
the Miami Heat and how like crazy that was for its time,
Yep.
um, and then like of course being such you know uh, such an instrumental figure in Ohio and in Cleveland in
Yeah.
particular. Um, that would be that would seem like sentimental, like a sentimental kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like from a basketball fit, I don't see how like the Sixers aren't the best option. And then like of course like to have another Rich Paul client, I think that's why the Maxi thing is so prominent. It's like LeBron would have
Mhm.
uh, uh, a relationship outside of basketball because of their agent relationship. Like Paul represents both of them, so it's like
Right.
they're familiar with each other. Um, And I think more now than ever, right? It's like like the NBA. It seems like it's about networking and things like that. Like
Yeah,
everybody's in
it's
this.
all the it's all the off court connections that
Yeah,
connect back to where these guys land.
yeah. So like more I think than any other sport. Like it's like when guys like develop connections in the NBA, it kind of like there's a good chance that down the road or at some point they're going to try to team up together and play together and stuff
For sure.
or whatever. But yeah, like it's hard to imagine it not being the Sixers when we just consider basketball. Um, and again, like we were talking on the previous show, I mean, um, and like you just said here, like alternate universe, it's just like it's so hard for me to imagine that he could actually like play here,
Right.
even if it's for a year, and he rides off to the sunset. Um, and then
I mean,
especially if it were to result in a championship, I mean that would be unbelievable. Like I don't even
Mark,
know.
you want to talk about cementing immortality?
Yeah,
Like, come here and win it, and take this franchise that has been floundering and be the one that gets it over the top.
yeah,
I mean, my dreams of Embiid sitting on the front of a school bus holding the Larry O'Brien trophies are not dead, not yet at
yeah,
least. Um, but you're talking about a guy who in even if he played a year or two and that happens, you're talking about cementing yourself in in a really rare air with iconic players in this franchise, right? You're talking about putting him in the same conversation as an Allen Iverson, a Dr. J, like right alongside those guys, even if it happens when he's 41, 42, and he's not the number one option. But
yeah,
that would you could, and he would never have to do a single thing ever. And
yeah,
you would see whatever jersey number he picked, like you would see those jerseys forever and ever.
yeah, yeah. You would, and it's hard to believe. And the Jalen Brown trade was hard to believe that played out the way that it did, and
Yeah.
that I really don't understand the Celtics uh like ops on that. Like I'm not really sure why they felt the need to make that trade unless it was just getting to a point where the Jalen Brown stuff was just like the off court stuff was just getting to a point where it was um it was unbearable for
Mm-hmm.
people. Um but I mean like from an actual like when you like look at the value and things like that, I don't really understand that from Boston's perspective. And like to add like Paul George, where like Paul George is clearly not the player that he once was, and
Yeah.
um, he's still paid pretty handsomely for it for the next couple years. So
Yeah.
uh, I'm not really sure, And Boston had like we said last year in the playoffs and stuff, some odd roster decisions. The
Mm-hmm.
fits were weird last year. I didn't think the
Yeah.
coaching was particularly great. The Sixers did what they did against
Mm-hmm.
the Celtics, which was great. But I mean, like Boston really didn't make much sense in a lot of those. When you look at like how their on court decisions and then coming
Mm-hmm.
into the off season here. But I mean that first game too, man. Whether it's I can't wait to see the schedule to see if we go there first or they come here. Um,
Mark, if that is not like opening night,
yeah, it's got to be opening night.
like
ABC.
Like it was Sixer Celtics last season, right? They were one
Yeah,
of those opening games. If they're not like again, we can make all the suggestions we want, Mark, but like if you're not dialed in enough to put them in as one of the games, like tell me a better iconic matchup based on the offseason that's happened, even so far, right? Even if the
Yeah.
LeBron James stuff doesn't materialize, if you can't get Sixers Celtics on opening night, like back in the like I'll even take it back in the Garden, letting Jaylen
Yeah.
Brown go back into the Garden on opening night, put them in the black jerseys, like just because that to me is like, again, they are relevant now. They're going to be on more national games, right? And if LeBron comes, then it's even more,
Nice.
right? They're going to have
More, yeah.
more of a national schedule. They're probably going to be playing on Christmas Day as it is. But Mark, I'm going to take you back to one of the show recaps from not that long ago, from May 21st, and some of the stuff we were talking about.
Okay.
Contract nightmares with Embiid and PG. The sub captions were the huge financial burden for years to come, no easy moves, and no clean rebuilds. Mark, we compared it to rearranging the chairs on the deck of the Titanic. And now we're sitting here essentially 8 weeks later talking
Yeah.
about acquiring a superstar, like a multi all NBA superstar, NBA Finals MVP, and then also being in the same conversation for an iconic superstar at the tail end of his career. Like, none of those things were on our radar. None.
No, no. It was almost like if like rearranging the decks on the Titanic were was like our like the way we had kind of described it. It was like Mike Gansey came on, started throwing people life jackets, and got the nose pulled up on the. You know
Right?
what I mean?
Right?
Yeah. I mean,
He's got people in the bowels of the ship, like
yeah,
patching it up and like going, no, we're gonna make it.
we're gonna make it
It's
here. We're
crazy.
not going down. Yeah, no, it was. It really was, and I did not. We didn't even talk about the Gansey piece of this, where like him and his brother have a connection with LeBron going back to high school,
All right,
which
so talk
is
about the picture. Talk about the picture that Mike Gansey's brother shared.
yeah. There's this iconic picture of like playing in high school when LeBron was. That's around the time in high school when LeBron started really. The world started to take notice of this kid,
Right.
and there's a picture like a high school all star thing with Mike Gansey and stuff, and it's with him and LeBron, and they got their shoulder. Mike
Mm-hmm.
Gansey's leaning on LeBron, and it's like this. Um, if he ends up coming to the Philadelphia, I mean, it'll be this iconic picture
Right.
forever. That all these years later, they had a working relationship in the NBA, and it just happened to be in Philadelphia. So that would be like talk about a full circle moment,
Right.
about somebody like that, you met all them years ago,
It's
Um,
it. I mean, it really is wild to see where this, like, how quickly this offseason transpired, and how how much just a new fresh perspective on, like, it really makes you want to feel like what was Darren Morley doing this whole time, like talking about like the trades that were made and the contracts that were handed out, and like it's almost like it's the difference between the analytics and like you've acquired essentially like a basketball guy, a guy who has
yeah.
played the game, knows the game, um, and is making moves related to what he's seeing guys play, not just like and I want to talk about LeBaron Feinlein a little bit, right? A little, you've seen a little bit of what he's been able to do in the summer league, but when you talk about, again, acquiring talent, right? He was a guy who was projected in the top 10, top 12, and a guy that they got in the mid 20s and is just a basketball guy. Um,
Mhm.
talk to me about what you've seen from him just in those couple of summer league games.
Yeah, a lot of the things that I read about him on draft night, I've seen so far in the summer league stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like on the
I mean, when you talk about Go ahead. When you talk about this offseason in particular, right? You're talking about like a kid who has shined while he's out in Vegas, um, and a guy that's just putting up. He's just putting up numbers in terms of
Yeah,
what he's been able to do. Like it's really impressive to watch.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, a lot of the a lot of those things that we saw, like or like I heard about on draft night, I've seen in in those summer league games. Like I remember someone describing him online that like some scouting like boardroom kind of thing. Like they like look at basketball prospects and stuff, and they describe them as like twitchy.
Okay. I
Like,
mean, yeah,
and
seems like a
I
guy
could,
who makes guys miss, is able to create space on his own.
yeah. And I actually saw, I was reading about him recently, reading something about him, and one of the comps, one of the NBA comps for Phylon was Tyrese Maxey.
Interesting.
So it was almost like, drafting another like Maxi like guard, you know,
Yeah.
even if they're not like, even if it's not like a complete, like apples to
Mhm.
apples comparison, to have somebody like that behind him, gives you like a similar, like a player that maybe attacks the rim in the same kind of way or, whatever. But I mean, I've been happy with, what I've seen from him. He just seems like like you said, he just seems like a ball player. And I just really like, I like what I've seen from him so far, like, and I'm eager to see, um, when the season rolls around, how they kind of use him and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that's like you're seeing him again, albeit in summer league, but like he's able to create space. He's able to get up his own shots. He's getting guys the ball. Ready as a game last night where he puts up 24. Like you're seeing a guy that is, I think, at the very least, can run your second unit and
Hmm.
you know feel comfortable enough to give him the ball and be able to like let him kind of go downhill. And if he's able to kick the ball out and be able to get, if you're able to get guys that space by you're getting them to collapse on the lane and kick it out, I think that's exactly what you want from a guy like that, and a guy that's going to be able to run. Right
Hmm.
when you get a rebound and you can kind of send him down the floor on an outlet pass, it's exactly what I think you want from a guy. And I think, Mark, one of the funniest things that I saw was, I'm trying to find it now. All right, so you ready for this? If you have Maxi, Phylon, Edgecombe, and Jalen Brown on the floor at the same time, the uniform numbers at that point would be 0, 00, 77, and 7, which I thought was just like was just really funny. But like you're getting, you're able to get, you're building a roster of basketball players, which
Yeah.
I think is a really great direction to go in.
Yeah. Another thing I want to add about Phylon too is like, that in situations where, he gets in like one-on-one situations,
Mm-hmm.
he's like a terror to guard. Like, like you end up like he excels, I think, like in one-on-one situations and stuff. Like he seems like an absolute nightmare to keep in front of, like stay in front of him, and
Sure.
um, so I like that too. Like, and there's a self creation element to him that, I'm really excited about. Like that he's going to be able to create his own offense when he has the ball in his hands, and
Mm-hmm.
um, it'll be good to have that in that second unit. You know, and then like again, like we talked about, like Anthony Simons, who I've always really liked. So it's cool
Mm-hmm.
that he's
I
coming to
like it too.
Philadelphia. I liked him in Portland, and some of the other places he's been. He was in Boston recently. But yeah, like he's a guy that can score, and um, yeah, it'll be fun. It should be a good thing here for that second unit. And we talked about, again, that was another thing that we've talked about on these shows where like, in recent years, I mean, like the drop off coming,
It's
when
crazy.
our our starters coming out, and then like the bench is getting absolutely just decimated. And, but
I mean,
that shouldn't be the case now. I think.
how many times did we see them have leads and then
Mhm.
half that unit comes out and that lead just evaporates?
Yeah.
So now that you have more roster depth, you've now got the ability to be able to kind of withstand those and build on those leads rather than maintain. Mark, I got a fun thing for you on the way out.
Okay.
A guy that we talked about early on in those early on shows, Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris gets another 2-year, fully guaranteed $31 million. In his
Oh,
NBA career, you want to take a guess at his career earnings
oh
for a
man.
guy that is like your very average run of the mill NBA guy?
Yeah.
He's the NBA's equivalent of Kirk Cousins.
Man, it's got to be like I'm gonna say like on average like per season, like his average
Just
on per
total.
oh man, I have no
His
clue.
total $330 million, Mark.
God
He has
damn.
made $330 million playing basketball. And is
That
just a guy.
yeah.
But like
We
took advantage of every financial opportunity possible, right? When that money came
yeah.
up, he took a check.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him for it.
No. No, definitely not. My cousin that I'm actually golfing with later today, um he's a huge basketball fan, and we grew up playing together and stuff, and um he texted me about it when Harris got that contract, and he was like he wrote to me, like he sent me like the tweet or whatever, and he was like Tobias Harris's agent is like the GOAT, like this guy should be in like the basketball hall of fame, the agent. You know what I mean? Like he's
Isn't it his dad?
is it his dad? It might be. It might be.
Hold on.
I know his dad was involved in that
It's
stuff at
his
one point,
father.
like when he was here. It is his dad. Wow.
His dad. Oh man.
Well, if anybody's gonna like sell you, you know, what better way than have your pops like just be the one like to sell you? Like no one could sell their client better than like a father son, like a family duo. I think.
It's
Um,
very true,
but
Mark.
that's
Very
insane.
true.
That's insane.
Listen, on the way out, Mark, go Sixers because we're the Sixers are back. We got the I'm gonna play the Sixers song on the way out.
Perfect. Yeah.